So the dripping faucet of PlayStation 5 news continues to drip as Sony's next console actually has an official name and a release window. It's going to be called PlayStation 5. And Sony says it'll hit in time for the 2020 holiday season. Right, so we knew that all along, but there's actually a nice new chunk of information about the PS5's controller and its solid-state hard drive as laid out by Wired in an interview the site did with Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan and system architect Mark Cerny. We all knew the PS5 would pack in an SSD, but this latest round of information dives a little deeper into what kind of benefit the storage technology could provide. In previous consoles, a drive needs to physically spin around in order to search for information, a process that forced developers to duplicate data numerous times so that a drive would have an easier time finding it. That won't be the case with the solid state, meaning we'll see some more efficient blocks of data. Now, all that space saving could net interesting results, depending on how devs choose to use that extra space. Cerny said it could lead to more detailed game worlds or smaller game patches. The only thing we really don't know is the size of the SSD, which you gotta think at this point anything less than 1 terabyte just isn't gonna cut it. It also sounds like an SSD will get rid of having to slow players up so more of the game can load up in the background. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You ever go through a spot where you're just like needlessly smashing a button or lifting a thing to access a new part? But just for a moment, let's have a moment of silence for the needlessly loading elevator. You'll be missed. Cerny went on to say that games will boot up much quicker than before, but they'll also give players the option to install individual game modes, like if you just wanted to install the multiplayer portion of a game. This will also work along with the console's new UI, which promises more transparency and accessibility, specifically letting players know their options for game installations and what kind of game mode they can jump in with a friend who might already be playing. Now, Wired's Peter Rubin actually got his hands on a prototype PS5 controller, which I would assume will be called DualShock 5, but we just don't know the name yet. He said the new controller looks a lot like a DualShock 4, which I have right here, and it's going to have USB-C because of course it should. But under the hood of the new controller are where all the improvements lie. It'll feature what they're calling adaptive triggers, which can simulate different levels of tension, like say if you're pulling back on a trigger to simulate the pulling back of a bow and arrow. The controller will also ditch those rumble motors in favor of haptic feedback, which will let developers program vibration effects more precisely. Now, Mr. Rubin tried out a demo with that technology and said it was able to convey the feel of different surfaces, like the sloggy feel of sand, slippery ice, and even the sensation of jumping into a pool. How a controller does that, I have no idea, but it sounds friggin' awesome. Now, if all that sounds like the PS5's controller might be a little heavier, you're right, it will be, but it should be a bit lighter than what a current Xbox One controller feels like with the batteries installed. And also, if you were worried a little bit about what Mark Cerny previously said about the PS5 and ray tracing, that's the new GPU technology that allows for ultra-realistic lighting and reflections. He clarified in this interview saying it would be achieved through hardware and not instead a software workaround. Oh, that's comforting. So there you have it, a nice little chunk of PlayStation 5 news. I'm starting to get excited, and it sounds like we're only going to need to wait about a year to play this thing, which is totally fine because think about it. We've got Death Stranding around the corner, The Last of Us 2, and Ghosts of Tsushima, which will all be played on PS4. So what I want to know is what's your guess for PlayStation 5 titles? Please let me know in the comment section below, but don't say Knack 3 because that's what I'm pulling for. Thanks for watching.